Eckhart Tolle, a modern-day master. Well, before I even get into this, I ought to say there will be no Wednesday meditation, no Wednesday service next week. That'll be the only service that I'll be missing is next week. So nobody's going to be here. And I want to get that across. I'll be away for a week with Norma, going to a small family reunion. But as I began to say, Eckhart Tolle has given us a definition of life which is helpful in understanding what we are in the process of doing. It seems that we, because of our nature, we tend to take life for granted. And if we're growing up without any kind of guidance from people around us that have some insight into living more expanded in the awareness of the divine, if we don't have that, then our outlook on life is pretty limited. And that's what Tolle is attempting to get us to understand, that we have in life an outer purpose and an inner purpose. And when we come to realize that truth and we begin to embrace our inner purpose, that's when life can begin to take on a new vision. And we can see the higher purpose for life. Until then, we tend to take life for granted and try to make the world work from our limited personal perspective. And that ultimately fails. Everyone goes about trying to create circumstances that will be harmonious and good, happy, helpful, healthy, but it fails. And it has a purpose for failing. At first, we don't realize that. It just looks like lady luck. Some people are fortunate, other people are not. I'll tell you, I didn't realize the essence of this truth until I returned to New York City and had a meeting with a friend that I'd known 35 years before. 35 years before this meeting in New York City, he and I were young, aspiring, theatrical types and creative types of people. And I helped him out, and that's how I became close friends with him. He was being evicted from his apartment. He couldn't pay the rent, didn't know what to do. The owner of the apartments was going to keep all of his belongings until he came up with some of the back rent that he owed. And I happened to be talking to him at the time. I don't know why I wound up meeting him, but he said, I don't know what to do. And I said, okay, look, let's just see what you may have that we can sell or pawn. And while we were going through his belongings in this apartment, I saw a violin in his closet. And I said, wow, I should be able to get something for this violin. He said, oh, no, I can't. I could never pawn that. That was my father's violin. And I have another one that's over here. And he said, it's my violin. I said, you play the violin? He said, well, I used to play quite well when my father So I said, okay, look, let's try this. So we took his violin. I assumed he could still play a little bit. We went out onto the streets of New York City. We started out on 72nd Street, which is a big area where there's a huge subway entrance and exits. And so he started playing the violin, and I made a sign, and I put it in a box that said, "Violinists and pianists need money to continue studies." And we were shocked. He was possibly the first street violinist in New York City. Today there are street buskers, musicians all over the place. But in that day, there were not many people that were doing that. And we were cashing in. The box kept filling up with money, and we were making $100 an hour at least. While he's playing, limited pomp tunes, but he still had the ability to play the violin. As a matter of fact, he went on to do that exclusively for the rest of his life. I don't know if he's still doing it. I mean, he's still alive. But when I met him 35 years later, and we sat down, had coffee, and just talked and reminisced, he was still doing it, but doing it in a different way. I only did it with him, and we split the money, of course. When the summer rolled, the spring, in the springtime, but when the summer rolled around, I went away to do summer stock in an acting company. And that was the end of my relationship with that kind of money. But he stayed, and he did that. 35 years later, he was still doing it. But I had moved in with him, and I'd known him since then and all of that. And he was a very self-centered, arrogant type of person back in those days. And I suspect I was pretty close to that definition myself. But when I met him 35 years later, he was different. And he was still playing. And he said, well, I play only for the Broadway shows break, when they break. And then I play the violin. I have my violin case out there. And I make enough money to live on nicely, just doing it for that 15 or 20 minutes a night in the Broadway theater area. He said, but during the day, I play at the hospitals and nursing homes. And I said, whatever inspired you to do that? He said, I had a major revelation. He said, I discovered that it's not my party. I'm only a guest at it. It was a really pointed way of saying, in the beginning, when we're young and we look at life, we relate from a strictly personal perspective. And so we are the star of this show taking place. And that's how we see life. And of course, it's a natural process. Everybody just about goes through that experience. But there's a time that comes, if we're awake in the process of living, and maybe even if you're not awake in the process of living, there could be destiny itself is going to find you and wake you up to the fact that it's not your party. You're just a guest at a party that could be defined as God's party. As a matter of fact, there are Bible passages that relate exactly that, when God invites everyone to dinner. And so it speaks about this householder that invites everyone to dinner. And everyone has an excuse. They're so busy. It says, I've got to go check on this land that I just bought. And somebody else says, well, I'm about to leave to go on this particular trip with this person. And then all the people that were invited have excuses because they're making their lives work from the perspective that it's their party. And the householder, when the servants tell him there's no one, they're all involved in doing their own thing. And then the householder says, then go to the highways and byways and invite the lame, the blind, the downtrodden, and the poor to my banquet. And this has a certain significant element to it. It means go invite those that have already been humbled by life and don't think that life is all about their personal interests and perspectives. And Tolle is trying to help us understand that this outer life that everyone begins living is destined to diminish because you cannot really fulfill the soul. The soul is looking for eternal divine experience. The soul is looking to have joy and peace and love. But in this world, as long as you're involved in the outer-directed, conflict-oriented illusion of life, you can't come to the feast of God. At that feast, you are truly nourished. You receive insight, healing, peace, love, truth, and you're able to see it and live it and experience it beyond the limitations of the world you used to live in. So Tolle speaks to that element of that first issue, which is the outer-directed life. And he says there's two elements. And this is from his book, A New Earth. And I'm reading from page 227, paragraph 3. This is the master speaking. He would never hurt you. He would never try to trick you. When you become as highly evolved as he is, he has no motive except to allow the divine consciousness to move to whoever he can help with that awareness. And this is what he's saying. Most people's lives are cluttered up with things, material, things to do, things to think about. Their lives are like the history of humanity, which Winston Churchill defined as one damn thing after another. Their minds are filled up with the clutter of thoughts, and thoughts after another, one thought after another. This is the dimension of objective consciousness that many people predominantly live in, and that is why their lives are so out of balance. Objective consciousness needs to be balanced by space consciousness for sanity to return to our planet and for humanity to fulfill its destiny. The arising of space consciousness is the next stage in the evolution of humanity. I'm going to read this again. Try to read it without any distractions. Most people's lives are cluttered up with things material, things to do, things to think about. Their lives are like the history of humanity, which Winston Churchill defined as one damn thing after another. Their minds are filled with the clutter of thoughts, one thought after another. This is the dimension of object consciousness that is many people's predominant reality, and that is why their lives are so out of balance. Object consciousness needs to be balanced by space consciousness for sanity to return to our planet and for humanity to fulfill its destiny. The arising of space consciousness is the next stage in the evolution of humanity. For a long time, it seems, as well, when you're getting into the spiritual practice of space consciousness, you wonder, as I did when I spoke to Wexler that night, 35 years after having known him to be self-centered and but then a completely different human being. I wondered whether or not anybody escapes the influence of the divine. In other words, is life structured in such a way that you ultimately will have to deal with the difficulties created in the outer directed consciousness to a place where you will have to get free of it because you will not be able to take the disappointments and the difficulties and the fear that continues to go with of that type of consciousness. So it may be that no one can escape the awakening process. Although, and this is the disclaimer in my own mind, having been in the ministry all these years and having been with people, many people, when they're about to make their transition, either with hospice in their homes or in the hospitals, I've met enough people who never got it, who got to be 80 years old or more and never awakened. In a sense, they still had grievances about the people in their lives, the relatives, the things that didn't go their way. And I don't know, that might be what the last rites are all about, getting somebody to finally forgive and release any grievances that they have before they move on, their soul moves on. But so it didn't seem that everyone gets it. It can be that there are those that just don't get it. They, I don't know, they kind of withstand, they struggle through, they become hardened, maybe they even become more isolated and afraid and angry, I don't know. But that's the reality. Though it seems to me difficult to escape the divine plan of awakening. And Eckhart Tolle is helping us to recognize the necessity to start to open up to this other awareness. So we have to open up to the space consciousness. And of course, that seems strange to somebody who's never tried it or done it, but it is what we do on the spiritual journey. In our practice of meditation, in our practice of the holy pause, in our practice of introspection, what we are doing then is we are quieting the outer directed impulse that we were born into, raised in, and appears most likely the thing to be doing, which is trying to get the world to meet our personal desires, dictates, and wants. That seems reasonable enough, but it doesn't play out to bring fulfillment, even if people, and I know this, people who have gained what they were seeking in the material world. I have had opportunities. I've rubbed shoulders with multimillionaires. I used to work for a little while on Madison Avenue writing ad copy for an ad agency. The guy that owned it was very, very wealthy. And he was not anywhere near having peace of mind. And he'd been around a long time, probably pushing 60 or so. But in any case, Eckhart Tolle speaks about the way we move towards space awareness, which is quieting this impulse we have toward personal acquisition, quieting that, quieting the thoughts that go with that, and allowing the divine nature that is part of us to rise in our awareness and guide us and speak to us and heal us. That's what he's saying about this inner thing. So let me share this with you also from his book. A New Earth. This is on page 264, paragraph 3. Without living in alignment with your primary purpose, whatever purpose you come up with, even if it is to create heaven on earth, will be of the ego or become destroyed by time. Sooner or later, it will lead to suffering. If you ignore your inner purpose, no matter what you do, even if it looks spiritual, the ego will creep into how you do it, and so the means will be corrupt. Let me take this again. Without living in alignment with your primary purpose, whatever purpose you come up with, even if it is to create heaven on earth, will be of the ego or become destroyed by time. Sooner or later, it will lead to suffering. If you ignore your inner purpose, no matter what you do, even if it looks spiritual, the ego will creep into how you do it, and so the means will corrupt the end. Again, having the advantage of being in the ministry and counseling with people. I used to do general counseling. I don't do it anymore. There's just not enough time to counsel people who, and there's so many people, that are just struggling to try to figure out how to deal with the difficulties in their lives. So you could counsel with them a long time, and it would be difficult because when I'm counseling to try to draw you into your inner understanding. And so I used to do counseling, but I had to give it up. There would be a line around the corner in that little church when I was counseling. And so I just never had enough time to deal on those levels. People would have to come to the service and get the principles necessary to alleviate their own suffering. You see, as long as you're operating strictly from the outer perspective, you are going to be involved in unhappiness of some kind. You may have fleeting moments of success, fleeting moments of happiness, but they will pass, and you'll be left wondering what's going on, what's the meaning of life. And the meaning of life lies in doing your spiritual practice and becoming a divine being who's in balance with life as it truly is, not just physical, but spiritual. And that's what we have to be involved in doing if we're going to find happiness. But it's a curious thing, because I've known some amazing things happen to people. And it was something that would change their experience. I've had in the ministry, I've also had that. People that are way, way off the point and seemingly disregarding any opportunity to involve themselves in spiritual practice have something extraordinarily wrong or bad or seemingly bad come down into their life, and it served its purpose out of that. An interesting story from my days in ministerial school, when they were, occasionally they would collect spiritual transformative stories from people that were visiting the village. They could write them out, and the students that were studying there, and the staff. And so one very interesting story that they related was about a guy who lost everything. He had a big business, was flourishing, but it began to fail, and fail very quickly. And when it all failed, his family was like feeling destitute. They didn't know what they were going to do. And he just had to get out of the house. And he got out of the house and he went and just sat on the curb outside his house. And he saw a piece of paper floating down. It was raining sometime before. And it was a page from the Unity booklet, The Daily Word. And he read it and realized all his efforts, all that he had done, the striving to get that business going and keep it going, and always how they had to have more material things to prove to themselves that the striving and the madness was worth it. It all came to him right there. There's no life without awakening to your divine awareness. And that little paper from the Daily Word was enough. That's one of the most interesting stories that they had. They had a lot of them. Interesting stories. So, Eckhart Tolle and masters like him are always attempting to help us begin our journey, get involved in space consciousness, start to do a daily meditation, and start to allow that divine nature to come forward in the definition of yourself. And as that happens, there is a new happiness. There is a new peace. There is a new joy and a new awareness of love that starts to open up and visit you in your relationships. And you say, how can that be? I love it, because A Course in Miracles covers this so totally. You get to that place and you say, how can that be? Why is life so different now that I've started to do these spiritual practices? And what A Course in Miracles then is able to relate full on is that it's because all minds are in communication. Not necessarily consciously in communication, but all minds are interconnected on a divine level. So there's many people who are cut off from that. They're living the outer-directed thing. But somehow or other, there are those that are open enough to feel your expression of consideration for them. What? Suppose you walk around and doing whatever you do, the same things you always did, but because you're involved in this divine consciousness, you're having consideration. What do you mean you're having consideration? You're having consideration for everything and everyone. You're having consideration for even the casual people you meet on your journey. Consideration for the people that call you during the day, whose job it is to do advertising calling you to try to sell you something. Instead of being abrupt or anything, you just have consideration for them. It's not an easy job to do. and they have to do it to try to make a living. And you have consideration for, the incidental people that are there everywhere. So what do you mean? What's going on? So you're doing the spiritual practice, you're doing the meditation, and you're beginning to feel a consideration for all your fellow human beings, and consideration for all the things that they do that may be difficult. And so you not only have consideration, you have compassion. You not only have compassion, but you also now immediately have forgiveness. What happened? What happened? You found your reality. You found how to truly be at peace and have happiness. And so all these things are natural in the purpose and the spiritual practice we are involved with. This is from Tolle. I'm going to conclude it with this. From his book, The New Earth, page 269. So, be true to life by being true to your inner purpose. As you become present and thereby total in what you do, your actions become charged with spiritual power. At first, there may be no noticeable change in what you do, only the how changes. Your primary purpose is now to enable consciousness to flow into what you do. The secondary purpose is whatever you want to achieve through the doing. Whereas the notion of purpose before was always associated with future, there is now a deeper purpose that can only be found in the present. What he advocates, and it is an amazingly transformative way of going into life. He advocates that whatever you're doing, do it wholeheartedly. Catch yourself when you're thinking about having resistance to what you do. Catch yourself when you're thinking how I could be doing something better, or why do I have to do this? Instead of that, doing whatever is before you to do and doing it wholeheartedly, completely, totally. And this is a spiritual path that Tolle outlines for us to get involved with. To be totally doing whatever you're doing, and catch yourself when you're conjecturing about, oh, maybe I could have been doing something else, or how did I wind up this, or why am I still with these people? And this job, who can wake up and deal with this job? If you're doing that, he's saying to you, take to task your awareness. And if you want to free yourself from the disturbance that you're creating in your mind, do whatever it is you're doing and do it wholeheartedly. The job, the circumstances in which you found yourself with certain people that you really before necessarily didn't want to be around, but there you are with them having to perform whatever it is you're there to do. And it goes on and on and on for you to awaken to be wholeheartedly present in the beautiful moment. And if you do everything like that, you will awaken to the joy of being selfless in a world of divine love. That's Tolle. We're going to take some time to meditate together. You can begin by taking a couple of deep breaths. As you release your breath, Release any particular cares or concerns you may have brought with you. Just become aware of the peace that's here. Allowing yourself to be okay. Being at peace. Not being driven. Not thinking about the things that you have to get done tonight, later, or tomorrow. You don't have to do that. You can just be here, okay with sitting still and enjoying the moment of doing no special thing, just allowing, just breathing, just letting the moment be whatever it is. And so we can take this spiritual mantra and bring it to mind and allow it to replace some of the thinking that we're always doing to figure things out. We don't need to figure very much out once we are operating from divine awareness. But just bring to mind this mantra and just gently focus your mind on it. Don't try to struggle against thoughts that may come in, but return your awareness to this particular ideal. This is the name of God being used in this mantra. I am in you, you are in me. I am the way, the truth, and the life. I am the way of true life. Be still and know that I am God. I am in you, you are in me. I am the way, the truth, and the life. I am the way of true life. Be still and know that I am God. I am in you. You are in me. I am the way, the truth, and the life. I am the way of true life. Be still and know that I am God. In this refined level of awareness, we will offer the names of those that have been submitted to our prayer list. As Norma calls the name, just allow this awareness of being. Allow this awareness of being and peace to be so.
Orion and Jess, Ron and Dora, Rebecca, Kathy, Addie, Sandy Spahn, Justin, Joe, Leslie, Eric, Angela, Tanya, Nikki, Yvette, Mark and family, Zachary, Tristan, Karma, Amir, Solomon, Benji, Anne, Victor, Francine, Lisa, Bobby, Jack and Sally, Holly, LT, Gizri, Brett, JG, Marilyn, Michelle, Meddy Kay, Donald Trump and Elon Musk, the United States, all of us in the United States. You can call out a name at this time if you would like to do so.
D. Matthew and family. S. Casey and family. S. Daniel and family. Diane Spahn.
You see the healing light surrounding the prayer box, and all the people's names that have been submitted throughout the month. We see them healed, physically, mentally, and spiritually.
Let us take a moment to embrace the awareness of the new heaven in earth, recognizing this refined level of consciousness, this level of consideration and compassion, love and peace, rising in the awareness of everyone sharing this Boulder community with us. And we see these spiritual attributes rising in the consciousness of everyone sharing the state of Colorado with us. And we continue to see this divine, pristine awareness rising in the consciousness of everyone sharing these United States of America with us. And this divine awareness moving and rising in the consciousness of everyone, in every nation, in every religion, in every culture, bringing forth a new heaven in consciousness, establishing a harmony, peace, and love happening everywhere throughout the world as we pray. The light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us. The presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is. And God is love. To this we say, Amen. We will take an offering for unity now. I'd like to remind everyone also that's tuning in, maybe you tuned in a little later, there's not going to be any Wednesday meditation next week. Of course, you have the opportunity to go onto YouTube, type in Unity of Boulder or Unity Church of Boulder, and they'll bring up all the past services that we've done, Santisha and I, and you can choose those services or listen to them whenever you want. But next Wednesday there will be no meditation. And tonight, we bring into our hands that gift we'd like to make to Unity of Boulder. And let's bless this gift with this offering prayer. Divine love, through me, blesses and multiplies all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive, because I give. And so it is.
Spread over us wings of your peace. Spread over us wings of your peace. For with you is the source of light. In your light do we see light. We see light. We see light.
Join me now, please. We dedicate this tithe to the will and the work of the Spirit of truth, the Spirit available to each of us, the Spirit that joins all of us. We dedicate this tithe to the victory of the Spirit of truth. Amen. Okay, beside that, on Sunday there will be a guest speaker at the 9 a.m. service and the 11 a.m. service. So, and he comes highly recommended. So you will want to tune into this gentleman who will be taking my place and Santisha's place on Sunday at the 9 and the 11 o'clock service. Is there anything else? We have tea and cookies for everyone, or anyone who'd like to stay and chat.
And the gift store is open.
Yes.
We have the most unique gifts. So check it out.
To these doors, to your left. To everyone, have a beautiful evening.